make as many mistakes as you can. Just try not to make the same mistake a second time. The teacher said, well, first of all, you're never going to make it because you're too tall, you're too impetuous, and you don't do what everyone else is doing. I like things to be now. I'm not about the journey, I'm about the destination. Falling 100 times, but then landing once and going, okay, now I get it. Yeah. And that once informs how you fall 20 times the next time rather than 40 times. Talent is great, but talent does things because they can, not because they know how. We didn't start out because we wanted to go to the Olympics. We found something that gave us a thrill. And that thrill, as long as that thrill is there, you can succeed. And that has nothing to do with money. If you want something badly enough, you'll figure out how to do it. And I threw my leg out and I went to step on it and it wasn't there. And I literally crawled off the ice, and that was the second surgery. I would have ended up in holiday on ice. I would have ended up performing. I would have ended up coaching, regardless of what happened at the Olympics. That thing with those things on my feet in my, as I call it, my happy place, and my white canvas, wasn't going to go away, and I didn't need the Olympics to make that happen. The judges are there for free. The audience are the ones who are paid to see you because they're the skating fans. Skate for them and make the judges think they've missed something. The most important visual I will ever have, and that was team leader, 2 coaches, parents, brother, because those are the people without whom I wouldn't have been on that podium.
I'm on a mission to help the world to see success differently. Through sharing the stories of our guests, I hope to inspire those that listen. This is the Different Hats podcast, produced by H2 Productions. I hope you can join us on this journey. I just wanted to take a moment to talk about one of our sponsors, Nostos, an authentic experience of Greece right here in the heart of Hove. In a world brimming with dining options, finding that one place that captivates your palate and heart isn't always easy. It's about more than food. It's the stories, the ambience, the slice of another world. This is the essence of Nostos, an award-winning Greek restaurant. With traditional recipes passed down through generations, each dish promises a story and a piece of heritage. And Nostos is more than just a restaurant, it's a community contributor. Each dining experience supports initiatives close to their heart, from local charities to cultural events, enriching Brighton and Hove's social fabric. They also provide catering services, bringing Greek cuisine to your personal events. For a taste of Greece without leaving town, visit nostos-hove.co.uk. And when you do go, say Sam recommended the feta nests. Oh my God, they are amazing. Okay, welcome to the first episode of Series 6 of the podcast. And wow, what a way to kick off. I'm truly honoured today to welcome British figure skating royalty. He's 4-time British national champion, 3-time world medalist, 1980 European champion and 1980 Olympic champion. I'm truly delighted to welcome the one and only Robin Cousins MBE to the podcast.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm thrilled to be here.
Robin, honestly, look, it's been great to obviously get to know you a little bit over the last couple of years, just through our mutual friends at the Star Trust, which I know you're ambassador for. So, but wow, what an honour to have you on, and
thank you.
Yeah, really excited to jump straight in.
Yeah, please do.
Well, look, we get, as always with the podcast, we have our life in 60 seconds. We call it. So we're gonna. Because for me, everyone's story starts somewhere, and I want to delve a little bit into it. So just tell me a little bit of a snapshot, something from your childhood that helped shape the person who sits in front of me today.
First one I can think of was when I did my first learn to skate class. My feet were quite small. We couldn't afford brand new boots, so my mother found a second-hand pair of white boots. My dad painted them black, and I wore them for my learn to skate class, and the teacher said, well, first of all, you're never going to make it because you're too tall, you're too impetuous, and you don't do what everyone else is doing. And those are the 3 reasons I won the Olympics.
I love that. Well, talk to me again. Then let's delve a little bit into life growing up, because you grew up in Bristol.
Yeah.
And obviously you developed that passion for ice skating quite at a young age, didn't you?
Yeah, it was almost instant, in as much as my dad had been an apprentice at Millwall Football Club before the war. My brothers were both, along with my dad, into team sports. For some reason, I wasn't interested in sports. I loved to run, I loved to swim, I used to jump, and I used to like to go fast. And those things never changed. That was the sort of the constants. But so jumping off walls onto the beach when we were kids, and cartwheels, handstands, and I like things to be now. I'm not about the journey, I'm about the destination. So really? Boom, okay. Let's go. And then I saw Gene Kelly dancing on screen and thought, oh, look at that. And I said to my mother, I want to do what he's doing. And at the time, I was the youngest of the three children. And my mum was thinking, how do I tell my sports mad husband that his youngest son wants to dance? Cut long story short, my dad said, well, Millwall Football Club at the time were one of the first teams to bring in a ballet teacher to help them stretch and keep fit and stop getting injured. And if it was good enough for Millwall, it was good enough for his son. So I got to start dancing classes at sort of 5, 6, 7. And that was that freedom. That was that freedom of movement for me. So it was a bit of gymnastics, a bit of dancing. And then, I found skating one afternoon when we were on holiday in Bournemouth, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Wow. And what I'm keen, when you mentioned at the starting point, those three elements, people go, oh, you can't do that, or you're never going to achieve that.
Constantly.
But what was then, as your mindset, to go, I'm not going to listen to that? Where does that come from?
I suppose it was the encouragement of the one thing about my parents. We might get into a bit of their personal history, which I think informs how my brothers and I were brought up and how we are. The S word was never part of our culture. Sacrifice. Nobody sacrificed anything. We did what we wanted to do, maybe at the expense of something else, but it was never considered to be a sacrifice. Our parents never said, well, I'm sacrificing this in order for you to do that. It's costing us this to do that. It was always a supportive environment. At one point, I was going down to the ice rink first thing in the morning. One of them was taxi drivers down. Then in the afternoon, my brothers were at Bristol Grammar School, and I was at Henbury Comprehensive, because I always say I failed my 11 plus in order to not have to go to school on Saturday, because that was skating days. But then in the afternoon, my brothers were playing rugby, cricket, or football, whatever it would be, and we would go and watch them. And then my middle brother was playing a musical instrument in the Bristol Youth Orchestra, and we would go and support that. So the family was incredibly supportive, not only of collectively as a family, but of what we all wanted to do. My brothers even did an extra paper round if there was an extra bit of money that was needed for me to be able to go to an extra skating lesson before a competition, or for whatever it would be. We all mucked in. And I think that's the thing. And I sort of coming a bit sideways is that I've always thought the more people, if they're not talking about you, they're talking about somebody else. So don't worry about it, they're talking about you. It's a good thing. And also then that question, as you say, the more you get told you shouldn't or can't or won't or mustn't, it's your job to figure out why are they saying that. Might be some truth in it, but you still want to find out yourself. Obviously, you're not going to put fingers in a socket when they say don't. But the idea that I was too tall to skate, or you're too impetuous, you're not listening, and you're not, more importantly, you're not doing what everybody else is doing. The reason the skating was exciting to me, I was doing dancing classes, and of course the curriculum then was so strict. Everybody does exactly the same thing. You look the same, you do the same. And I was like, what? I've already done that bit. I want to move on and do my own thing. In skating, you learn exactly what everybody else does, but in your own way. I would teach you the way I was taught by the person who was taught them. I'm not looking at a textbook and saying, it says here you have to do it so-and-so. Obviously, in our industry, when you get to a certain level in any sport, there are certain things that have to be exact and have to be precise. But how you do it is really down to the personal feeling and the opinion of that person. So it was very much of, I always say, make as many mistakes as you can. Just try not to make the same mistake a second time. Because you don't learn if you don't make them. You can't go through life that might not happen, that might not work. So yeah, I don't know where it came from.
But you
whether
developed
it was encouraged,
that belief, like that ability to go, it's okay to make mistakes and do that.
That was Dad,
age?
I think.
Really?
A lot of it came from Dad with all of us. It was, my brothers didn't play well, I didn't skate well. Well, that's fine. That's all right. And my mother would say, I don't care, as long as you come off the ice in one piece, which is the way he went on. What happens in between is immaterial to me. Yeah. But then we would, the analysis of that, or of a rugby game, or cricket, I got bowled out, I didn't do that. So, okay, but it's the whys. So then what can you do next time to try and avoid that? Or when he's bowling, you're going to have to do so-and-so. You've got to shift this. You've got to do, you know, how to work with the obstacles. You can't figure out, see all these many, many years later, people say to you, but did you always know? I said, well, I suppose I did, because there's no such thing as I've done it, so now give me everything. What it means is that some people might open the door for you. It'd be lovely. Or you think, actually, I'll go and find the bloody key. I don't care. I'll find the key and I'll knock it down, or I'll hit it down because I think what's on the other side is worth it. Nothing comes for nothing. There has to be consequences, and there have to be reasons, and you figure them out.
Yeah. I guess and being curiosity is something like a value I guess that I've got. One of the reasons I do the podcast, because I'm just curious. I find it fascinating having those conversations. I try and teach the kids. My twins are 8 now, and to be curious, and what's, like you mentioned, what's on the other side of the door, right?
Yeah.
And I guess for you, I guess at that young age, being curious, like going out and trying that, and
falling 100 times, but then landing once and going, okay, now I get it, and that once informs how you fall 20 times the next time rather than 40 times. And as much as you get things wrong, when it goes right, take that little nugget and figure out, how can I apply what I did right there to these other things that are constantly going wrong. Even with young coaches now, with the mentoring I do, it's like, don't assume they know what they're doing when it's going well. Get them to tell you what they're doing. Because what they think they're doing and what they are doing might be 2 different things. Don't only try and fix things that are wrong. Make sure they're aware of what they're doing when it's right. Because that's also a form of encouragement. Because, as I say, you figured something out on one jump, and there's 5 other jumps. You can figure it out on one. Pretty much everything. Find that common denominator between the other 5, and you'll have 6. They might not all be this perfect. They might not all work. But again, try and encourage them to use their own abilities. A lot of people come up to me and they say, oh, my kid is really, really talented. They really should be doing so and so. And so, yeah, but it's useless if they don't want to use the talent. Give me a kid who has that hunger for knowledge, who wants to learn the craft. They'll figure it out, the rest. It's not about a talent. Talent is great. But talent does things because they can, not because they know how. And generally, and I know this because I'm one of them, they don't want to know how because I don't need to. But in the skating world, and kids come up to me and say, oh, I've lost my jump, I've lost my axle, I've lost my doubles. I said, where did it go? Shopping? You haven't lost it. Your body knows how to do it, but your brain doesn't. And of course, when your body doesn't quite feel like it that day, you can't figure it out in your brain because you've actually not learned the mechanics of it, or you haven't taken it in to be able to do it yourself. So your parents end up paying this coach the same thing to tell you the same thing they told you last week and the week before and the week before. It's like, at some point you have to start taking ownership and responsibility, and that's something that you learn very quickly. For me, it was how can I not fall as much? How can I still go really fast and get it right? And it was, again, that's when it comes back to something that I said to you when we were talking at an event. I said, and I tell people this all the time, it's not about who you are. I never won anything because of what I did. It was how I did it. And I just made sure that I did it. Why would I want to be like everybody else?
There's so many things for me to take away from that. I love the conversation around talent, and actually perseverance and determination and self-belief and all
We'll
of those
always
things
win
over,
out.
o-
We'll
over
always
time.
win out.
Because that's such an important thing, like not just in skate, in life in general,
Yeah.
in everything that we do in life. We've got so many, I guess, you know, a lot of our listeners run their own businesses, entrepreneurs, and go out there, but there's so much in that for me that you're saying
Right.
about whatever talent people have, whatever skill set you've got, nothing can beat determination, hard work. And
See, I'm watching how animated you are and how passionate you are about what you're doing as you're talking to me.
Yeah.
The same way as I am about my job. It isn't about what you get from it. It's the thing itself that is the joy. And I suppose my one major big complaint, huge, is that you try to explain to kids these days that people actually just do things because they love it, not because they're going to make money out of it or get something out of it, or it's going to give them this, or there's a return. And they look at you like you're speaking in a foreign language from another planet. Why on earth would you want to do that? Is the look, and they kind of go, what do you mean? Who do you want to be, or what do you want to be when you grow up? And of course they'll reel off these names and you go, but how do you think they got where they are now? It doesn't matter whether it's Tiger Woods, David Beckham, me, Torval Indy, whoever. We didn't start out because we wanted to go to the Olympics. We found something that gave us a thrill. And that thrill, as long as that thrill is there, you can succeed. And that has nothing to do with money.
This is, you know what?
And kids don't want to know that because they just think, I can get on telly. I can have my 50. Go ahead, have 15 minutes. But give me the person who's interested in doing the work to get 15 years.
So it's almost like music to my ears. Like when the tagline of the podcast is helping the world to see success differently, right? Because for me, society still very much so that people's success is measured by potentially financial status,
Sure,
or achievements, or whatever that may look like. Whereas actually, it's one thing I want to try and teach Mark is the fact that as long as you love what you do, as long as there's that passion, there's that love for what you do, there's the money and other bits will come, and if that's what it is, but do something that fills you up and.
Yeah, and if you're lucky, you can find that.
Yeah.
A lot of people are friends now with their sort of teenage kids saying, they're trying to decide what they want to do with their career, and there's so many options. I said, well, first thing, I always tell this to kids, instead of thinking what you want to do, start listing the things you don't want to do, things that you have no interest in. All of a sudden, you'll find that some of those things from that column actually appear in the possibles and things you might want. Instead of saying there's 100 things that I might be able to do, you could probably eliminate at least 30 instantly. That I have no interest in that, no interest in. And all of a sudden you narrow things down and then write down the things that make you tick and see where they match and go, oh, okay. And again, it's a learning process. Life is a learning process. As I say, make the mistakes. Try something. You only know if you don't like it. If you haven't, how can you say I don't like it? You haven't tried it. I mean, certainly with foods for me, I know exactly what I won't eat. I don't need to try it. But I think just allow yourself to make the mistakes and be wrong. And I think with kids going forwards is you can't. Back in our day, we didn't. And I left school when I was 15, for goodness sake. But I was already traveling internationally. I had seen more of the world than my geography teacher had. But it was, why not?
Yeah. It's interesting.
When we were talking about doing this podcast with you, and I said, well, generally when people say, can you do so-and-so? Would you like to? Kind of ask. They'll either say yes or no. And it'll either be no now, but let's do something in a month or a year. There's no, all they can do is say no. Yeah. That's the thing. It's not a horrible word.
Never be. I'm a big believer in that. Ask the question, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, what's the worst that can happen? But it's interesting. I'd love to tap in a little bit to that about, like you mentioned about school. Obviously, you had a focus, I guess, from that young age and a passion that you'd found.
Yeah.
I guess some people maybe out there haven't found that yet and don't find that at a young age. But what are your thoughts around education? Because you mentioned we're not really set up. Our system doesn't allow us to make mistakes and fail. Like
Right.
it's not geared up for that. What's your...
I put it slightly sideways. I had a conversation with a famous Russian skater back in the day, and the question she had for me was, and it was quite late, it was Olympic level, so she was, what is leisure? She said, because they have no translation for that in Russian. And of course it was, you do things properly or not at all. That doesn't mean to say that you have to be an Olympian if you're going to do it's like adult skaters, people who are swimming well into their 70s. It's their again, it goes back to the joy. And one of the things she said, because you do maths and history and geography and biology and sport, they're all considered, sport is an academic career, not something you do for fun. So again, if you were kicking a football around, playing field hockey, basketball, a little bit netball, rounders, we all were kids, those things are the stuff that schools were able to provide. But of course, in a lot of these other countries, and certainly in my sport, ice hockey is huge, and there are pee-wee club. There are 15, 16 ice rinks around because all the universities and high schools have ice rinks because they have hockey teams and it's part of the thing. So it's ice rinks are few and far between, not that many more nowadays than there were 40, 50 years ago when I was starting out. But again, it's all relative to what's required. But going back to the education thing for me is yes, everybody wants a good base. But I think we now know that allowing the creative juices to start to flow of somebody, and again, have them finding out earlier in their life what they have no interest in. Don't make them do something if they have no interest, but find something similar that go, if you don't like that, but you might like this type of thing. But that means you're having to be a lot more individual as opposed to putting everybody in a pen, giving them a pen, putting a teacher in front. And it's very, very difficult. But then the internet is available. There's things available now in terms of education that wasn't even invented 15 years ago, let alone back in my day or your day or anybody else.
Yeah.
So it is always difficult. But a part of it is the attention span now too for people to actually think that I can't get it in 10 minutes. No, you're going to have to do at least 3 weeks. Ooh, it's
instant gratification.
Instant gratification, yes. And there is no such thing.
Yeah, I completely. I spoke on a previous podcast about this exact thing about delayed gratification. How we don't my kids even still now we'll just get something on Amazon and it'll be here tomorrow. And it's like there's no. Like you said, you relate back to hard work and effort that you put in.
And the gratification of, for me, still here we are 40-odd plus years later, being able to put my skates on and get on the ice into my happy place with other kids who I know at their age are feeling what I felt when I was their age. And that's the thing you try and move on. Or even through Star Trust, doing these little skating sessions we did we do at the Worthing Rink over Christmas, and people have paid. So it's just great to have 4 or 5 people who've never been on the ice before, and at the end of the session, going around having a lovely time and going, "Oh, this is it is for me. It can be a joyous place, and skating is great because mum, dad, grandma, grandkids can all do it at the same time.
Yeah.
Recreationally, it's fine." But it's where do you do it? Christmas rinks pop up every year. It's fine, and it's busy and it's wonderful. But I think it's the gratification of just being in a position to do what you love, regardless of whether you're any good at it. But if it gives you joy, please keep going and pass that on. Again, it's not about being an Olympian. It's not about being on telly. It's not about being being a pop star. It's about being able to sing, or I just want to dance, or I love to be in a club, or I want to play golf every week and be absolutely appalling. But try taking me off that golf course. That's the thing. It's that thing. You can't buy that thing. people are born with this ability, and then everybody has their own ability. It's finding where it best fits, and everybody should be allowed to find their best fit.
Love that. And there's so much of that you're saying about going through life, whatever stage we're at, finding those things that light us up and that give us joy, and trying to do more of them. And that's because you come, we get to our deathbed and we look round and you go, I don't want to be there going, I wish I had.
What if?
Yeah.
The what if scenario.
Yeah.
You never, people say, I have that a lot with people who say, well, it was different for you. It wasn't. Yeah. I would like to think it was different for you now in a better way, but it's not necessarily that way. If you want something badly enough, you'll figure out how to do it. Yeah. Again, that's just to have a go and just to try. And then, okay, this is what I'm going to need to do to be really good at it. And that's what it's going to cost. Okay, reality check. Some things you can't have because you can't afford them or they can't. Okay, so again, find a way around. Find something similar. Find another way to use that inspiration that you've now discovered that you've got for something. And it's, the mentoring thing is great because it's trying to get that light bulb moment in people who don't think they have a light bulb, let alone that they are the switch to turn it on or turn it off or change color. And that the simplicity is we all have the thing in us. How we choose to use it is up to you. How hard you want to work for it. But nothing will ever come to you for nothing.
I love that. And I guess listening to you talk, I'm assuming is one of the reasons that you support the Star Trust so much and such an ambassador and advocate for them because of exactly that.
It's the kids thing. That's always been my not to dwell and to delve in, but my father had TB in the war when he was stationed in South Africa. He and my mother were engaged, and he broke off the engagement because I'm not going to be alive. So my mother would write back to him saying, I didn't get your last letter, so I don't know what went on. And that's it. He was brought back. He survived miraculously and came through it. And I remember him bringing his wet film home and saying, I'm done. I don't have to go back anymore. They also lost their first child to meningitis at a very early age. And so I'm actually number 4 of 4, although three of us that are alive now. And it was, I think, as I said earlier, their history informed how we have ours. And so they were very grateful, and my dad was a civil servant. In the old days, anybody old enough to remember, you used to send your car tax to Cardiff. My dad, and it used to come from Cardiff down to Bristol City Council offices, and my dad was that person who used to stamp your motor tax and put it in the little disc that went in the window. Mum did a couple of different secretarial jobs to do what we needed to do. We mucked in, little council house. Everybody, it's the mucking in and doing what you can. And I loved it, and we all loved it. And I got to skate. My brothers got to do their thing. And we were never asked to do anything other than respect the time and the effort that had been taken to get us to where we wanted to be, whether it was the cricket pitch, the concert hall, the ice rink. They were happy to be taxi drivers. Just don't take that taxi driver for granted. I would, walk down up to the bus stop at Seamills and take the number 42 down Park Street and then walk across into the ice rink and then do my early mornings and then get the bus back, to do school. You do what you need to do, and you find out sometimes you need those hardships. I always talk about when I first went to London, I was living in my £9 a week bedsit and stocking shelves at Whiteley's department store. You find out how badly you want something by what you're willing to do for it. 2 years was enough of that. And then, my life kind of changed a little bit leading up towards the Olympics. But then within all of that, there was this thing in the back of my head with Les Bardsley telling me as a 16-year-old, what are you going to do if your career's over? Because I missed my first world championship because of my first knee surgery. The second one was going at that point. And I thought, well, it can't be over because I haven't had one yet. And we didn't have, Team GB didn't exist. We didn't have a physio. We didn't know anything about it. And there is something to be said, I think, for the less you know, the easier it is to just get on and do something. So now, of course, we know so much about joints and what you should and shouldn't be able to do as an athlete. And we read it all the time. Athlete careers are over because of a broken bone in a foot or knee joints going. Well, no one was going to tell me it's over. I was going to figure out how to do what I needed to do and compensate. My back suffered as a result of the knees, and in 3 weeks' time, I'm having the final surgery. I'm calling a halt. I'm getting a full knee replacement. Wow. But I cannot complain what the 8 surgeries have allowed me to do, including 2 surgeries before I even got to the Olympics. It's, that's the thing people forget or don't think about. But I didn't know any better. I didn't know any different. So after the first surgery, and these were under the knife, so this is before arthroscopic surgeries and keyholes and all that. So, it was 18 weeks, I think, for the recovery from the first knee surgery. And when I had the second one done a year and a half later, 2 years later, Les was like, come on then, we know what we did last time, we'll do it. And we were back on, I was back on the ice in 14, 15 weeks. It was great. Now they get you up walking the next day. But it's like, okay, that's what I'm stuck with. That's what I'm stuck with. There's no excuses. You can't make excuses about it. You choose to put yourself out there. So you deal with it. But now you can have the people around you who can help you deal with it, help organize it. And I wanted to get this last surgery in before my surgeon retires in a couple of years.
So many things. I mean, look, can you still pinpoint a time like you started skating, you found that joy and that passion, that thing that lights you? Do you remember a point where you thought, I'm going to get to the Olympics and I'm going to be an Olympic champion? Was there?
Well, I think the year back in the early days for me, the novice and junior championships were at the beginning of the year, and the senior championship was in the December before at the beginning of what was then the international season. And I had won the British Junior Championships in the March in 1972, which allowed me to compete in the 72-73 season British Senior Championship that same year. So there was only 3 of us in it. John Curry was number 1, Michael Fish number 2. I was 3rd in my first championship. I don't tell anyone there was only 3 in it. Shh, keep that a secret. And then you go, okay, I'm on the senior squad now. I did get to the European Championships in 1973 because of John's placement. It allowed us 3 placements. And then in 1974, I had second year senior. I was now number 2 behind John, and your first World Championships in Munich. And I was literally in Munich at the event when my knee snapped and I had to withdraw from my first World Championship. And that was a pivotal moment for me when I went, this isn't happening again. And I had no idea. That was the first knee surgery. I had no idea what it was going to entail or what was going to happen. And it's the right leg, which is the leg I picked my toe picks in to rotate, to jump. It's the landing leg. It's the one that took the most strain always from a skater. You're jumping, rotating. You're landing on this little blade on that one. The ankles are fully encased in the boots that are very heavy, and the blades are the knees, hips, back. The knees are what takes the... And again, being taller, going faster, I was jumping higher than anybody else, and I was that idiot who was trying to go longer than anybody else. And so, self-inflicted probably, partly, but there was no other way for me to do it. That was the thing. And then in 1977, at the World Championships in Tokyo, I was now then on a podium at the European Championships, got my first taste of a medal. And that was when I kind of went, okay, is this... And I did sit down with my family and say, is this it? I'm a bronze medalist in the European Championships. I am doing in a week what most of my competitors are doing in a day in terms of time. Are we at that point? Is it done? And that's when I had the opportunity of the offer to go and train in America, which would take me for the next 3 years to Olympics. So, but then I had to get through 1977, and I had already had the injury with the left leg, and I was literally in the middle of my free program, and I went threw my leg out and I went to step on it and it wasn't there. And I literally clawed off the ice, and that was the second surgery. And the British coach that we had never travelled, wouldn't travel internationally. She could only take a train. She would never fly. So Carla Fassi, who had taught John Curry to Olympic gold 4 years earlier, alongside Dorothy Hamill in that same Olympics, Peggy Fleming 4 years before that, he had invited me to his training camp to see if we could get along, and we could make that happen. So he said he would look after me at the championships in Tokyo. And it was amazing. He got the German team doctor to strap me up. He got did everything he possibly could with his wife and Kit to get me on the ice. And they got me through 2 days of the events, but the third one, I was done. And then it was after that show my age, Zetter's Pools. Paul and Helen Zetter, who ran the Zetter's Pools, the old days when you used to do your pools. Yeah. They had started, and they were very instrumental in what was then the early days of Sports Aid Foundation. And Sports Aid Southwest had been incredibly supportive of me, and I was getting a small, tiny, but very important money to help towards training, et cetera, et cetera. And in that year, 77, 78, the National Sports Aid Foundation gave 2 awards, and we're giving 2 quite substantial awards, one to the Winter Olympics and one to the Summer Olympics for the 2 athletes most likely to. And Sebco was given one, and I was given the other. And without Sports Aid Foundation, I'm not going to say I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you right now, because you know me, I've said it. I'd have found a way. We'd have found a way. But that took the stress off having to work, my parents having to find this extra where the funding would come. And I could actually train in the States for those 2 years leading up to the Olympics alongside quite a few of my competitors when I needed to be able to compete in the events that made sense, according to Carlo and Krista, in order to have my journey to get to the Olympics so that it made sense from a competitive point of view and have it work. So even though I was on a podium at the World Championship, I was European silver medalist, I still at that point was fairly piecemeal in terms of training and how I could do it, and going to the gym to try and do circuit training to try and put a bit more body weight on, to get a bit more meat, to get some pressure into the ice, to get the blades to sit heavier, so I wasn't sliding around so much. It was, and those 2 years in the States gave me that opportunity and gave me what I needed in order to put my best feet forward. I can't believe I just said that. I caught myself. You saw that, as I was saying, it was like, oh no, can't say that.
It's coming to that.
And go into the Olympics or into those 2 years knowing that I was not going to have that what if only conversation in my head.
Amazing.
It's up to you. Then you got it. Someone's given it to you. You've got to use it. And be grateful and be thankful.
Well, see, listening to the conversation up until now, that word you've just used, grateful, has come out on how your parents felt after loss of their first child, and then obviously with you guys coming on, that feeling of it's such an important thing in life to just be grateful for where you are right now. Right?
I always like to tell a cute story. We're doing an interview, our post-Olympic interview, somewhere. And it wasn't at an ice rink. I don't know where we were. And I was not in the room at the time. My parents and someone went up to my mother and said, "How's your son? How's your fantastic son?" And my mother's answer was, "Which one?" Obviously, he knew exactly who he was talking about, but my mother just put it in perspective for her. She said, "Which one?"
Wow.
And it's always been that way, and I think that's important. Which is why my brothers and I, we all still talk, we all get along, and it's lovely. And not being frivolous, but that was the thing. It was, I was doing exactly what my brothers were doing, and they were doing what I was doing, but mine was in the public eye.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm just going to say something about one of our sponsors, Riverval. The world of cars, vans and minibuses is often a pain point for many of us. The hassle of finding the right vehicle, let alone looking after it, are all more things to add to our lists as busy people. Riverval's mission is to make motoring manageable, and that's why they provide leasing, purchasing, servicing and vehicle management. So whether you have one family car or a fleet of vans for your business, Riverval are your trusted vehicle supplier. Visit www.riverval.co.uk. Okay, let's jump back to the podcast. And then other things I really want to. There's so many questions going through there. But it's so you talk as well leaving school at 15. I guess that.
I would clarify because I'm a summer baby, August.
Right.
And that was the last year where you could leave school before your 16th birthday, knowing that you would be 16 in that same year. Following year, you had to be 16.
To get okay.
So I would have had to go on, it would have been my 17th year to leave school. There was no way that was happening.
But we're again, back to this whole thing about that mindset and that determination and the discipline, I guess, to get up early and go skating. You've got the love and the passion there, but still at a young age to have that discipline. Talk to me about that mindset of having that.
The school thing was actually very, again, comprehensive school, and Mr. Luge, who was the headmaster, he was one of the ones that was very incredibly supportive. My parent, we talked to him, there were one or two teachers who weren't happy at all, thought it was ridiculous that I was doing sport instead of getting an academic career. I knew if the skating wasn't going to go, I liked to draw, paint. I was creative. I was going to do something creative anyway. There were avenues, and we had them all, and I had everything. We had all the paperwork. I was not interested in it at the time because I did have a focus. It was like, how do I do what I want to do, and how do I do it right? And right now, I can't do that in school. And then the way I was then already competing internationally, already had medals internationally, not yet at European and world level, but I was on that way, and that's that moment. And it was to sit down with it. This is not a decision to take lightly, and we certainly didn't take it lightly. But Plan B, Plan C, Plan D, Plan E were absolutely talked about, and the reality check, as I like to call it, coming in with that was, but it was very, I'm assuming it was very clear what I wanted and where I was going. And I would have ended up in Holiday on Ice. I would have ended up performing. I would have ended up coaching, regardless of what happened at the Olympics. Because that thing with those things on my feet in my, as I call it, my happy place and my white canvas wasn't going to go away, and I didn't need the Olympics to make that happen.
Because then it's saying that this is where your happiness and fulfillment lies. It's not, I want to get an Olympic gold and I'm going to delay my happiness until I get that.
No, and I don't think that many, well, certainly not in the Western world, and not in my world and my competitors. It was the joy of what we did was always there. And it was so great because, and it went through a phase, I'm going to say in the 90s, 2000s, and the noughties, where it became a bit everybody doing the same thing, so a bit cookie cutter of everybody doing the same thing. Whereas now there's more freedom in how you can create what you want to perform out there in the international skating world. And of course after myself and then with Torvill and Dean, everyone wants to try and skate like that. Well, you can't. You can try and emulate it, but actually take what they've done, and then eventually it happened with the Canadians, take what they've done and take it to the next level. Use what someone else is giving you and visualize it and then do your own version of it. So, we're now, and it's great. I love watching, and I can still be creative and choreographing and know that there's no rules for what I need to do if I'm teaching or doing something with the Holiday on Ice. Or if I'm choreographing with the students, it's the first thing is question for you, what do you want to say? Because this is you writing a sentence about yourself. So, or I always say to some kids, you spend all day being yourself. Set foot on the ice, put your skates on, and give yourself a fantasy name. Do something else. Be whoever you want in your head that allows you that freedom to just show off. Because that ultimately, that's what if you're going to put yourself in a stadium, whether there's 3 people in there or 4,000 people in there, ultimately your job is to show off. Yeah. Not to be better than somebody else, but to show off in a way that they get your attention and they give you what you have asked for. And people come up and say, oh, that judge really hates me. They don't like me. So they haven't got a clue who you are. They don't like your skating, but they haven't got a clue who you are. Fix the skating and you'll suddenly find out, that's rather nice. I like that. Don't take it personally. Just figure out what you're going to do right. Or the great man says, I'm going to beat so-and-so this year. So, well, that's really good because you could go and beat that person. And then someone else comes along and beats both of you. So we haven't actually achieved anything. So how about beating yourself? What was your PB? What was your what mistakes did you make last time? Okay, now how about only making one of those and maybe making something else better? That's the goal every time for betterment. And it just takes that pressure out because by the time you get to Olympics, no one's out there to beat each other. They're there to do their job.
And that's such a valuable lesson for me, listening to that. There's because there's so much in society, again, especially with social media now, that we're constantly comparing ourselves to other people as opposed to just going, can I be the best version of myself? What am I doing? Am I going to be the best version of myself? And actually, we go on social media, we see people's highlights. Oh, but look how well they're doing, and look how well they're doing, and you're trying to beat other people or get better than them. But
I find social media a bit odd. I call it the 3 Bs. You're either bragging, begging, or bemoaning. Like, it's social media works great when it's helpful to other people. But if it's people can be very proud of what they've done. Do I need to tell a bunch of people that I have no idea, who don't know me, I have no idea who they are, that I have just done that? It's great to for endorsements and to push things out there, and I use it, probably not as much as I would like, or I probably should. But you get lost down those rabbit holes of videos and scrolling. Hang on a minute, that's 2 hours or an hour, whatever. I could have been doing something productive instead of watching and looking at what other people might be doing when I could be doing something else. It absolutely has its great purposes, and but it cannot be the reason to exist. I agree. And I guess what strikes me with you, and having this conversation, is your level of self-awareness now. But actually, listening to you talk about even as a younger age, had you always had that, like a really good level of self-awareness? Yes, but I didn't know. Okay. I did. Again, you don't know. Now I am very aware. Was I like that? Did I do that? Was that the reason I did things? I don't know. I suppose hindsight is a wonderful thing, and I'm very clear in helping move people forward that are trying to do a version of what I did, regardless of whether it's sport or otherwise. And it comes back to, take the skates off the feet. The mindset is exactly the same no matter what it's going to be for. The only other thing I always say now, you can do whatever you want, just earn the right to do that or have that. Have you put the homework in? Do you know the history of this in order to know your history to inform your future type of thing? It's, I can do that. Well, have you looked on YouTube to see all those people that have already done that over the past 50 years? So what version of yours is going to make it better than those other hundreds of I have no idea. Okay, how can you do that if you don't know your history? And that's the same with lots of skaters. Look at things and go, that's brand new. I said, actually, no, there's a video from 1984 of somebody doing that, even earlier. There is no such thing as a new thing. Everything old is new again. Earn the right is a good one. Yeah, you can do whatever you want, just earn the right.
Love that. Well, look, over that, you've talked a little bit about. You obviously alluded to your knee injuries and would that be if you go back and look at your career and you're like, was that the biggest challenges that you faced throughout your career?
Yeah, and again, part of what I think helped was that there wasn't that much information about athletes' injuries. There was, sports science didn't exist in the 70s. It was something that was, and biomechanics and all of this. And again, there's so much information available now. Some people might even just start based on the fact that they don't fit the module. Well, then move the parameters, figure it out. And that's what we had to do. I talked about Tokyo and the World Championship. I ended up having to do a specific element on the wrong leg going the wrong way in order to do it, because it was a required element for that event. But was it great? Of course not. But did I do it? Yes. And did I lose points? No. But I did what I was required to do, just on the other foot, going backwards. It was an odd thing, but you figure it out. That's the thing. You figure it out. And that's such a win-win situation, is that you can't look at a problems are there to be solved or worked around. You can't ignore them. They can't be eliminated.
It's such a valuable lesson for anyone.
But this is stuff that you learn by allowing yourself to go through that process and looking back on it. And again, we probably would be having this conversation, and not many words would have changed had I been second or fifth at the Olympics, or not even got to that Olympics. It's never a given, and as long as I was on the ice and I could skate, okay, now what? That's all you want, is now what?
Because then you're not defined by your achievements, but you're defined by what you do, right?
And I think I'd already made the decisions, but certainly, again, because of surgeries and things. Now I had medals, and I had done this, and I was world medals, and the Olympics was a pinnacle. Did I really want to try and figure out another 4 years? Or is that, no, I'd actually done what I wanted to do. And my thing was performing. So I knew that I wanted to join an ice show. I knew that I wanted to enjoy what my skill was and not worry about 9 judges deciding whether or not they thought it was good enough. As Carlo, it's funny, he said this in another way to John Kerr, but when he said to me, he said, you have to understand, he said, the judges are there for free. The audience are the ones who are paid to see you, because they're the skating fans. Skate for them and make the judges think they've missed something.
Love that.
And it's just, it's exactly, the joy of what you do. And that was the thing coming into the Olympic cycle in terms of music and how I was going to skate. He had done it with John Curry 4 years before. John was very balletic, wanted to be a ballet dancer on ice. And Carlo's reaction to John, and he told me this, he said, you can do exactly what you want, but you have to give them what they need in order for them not to ignore who you are and what you're doing. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. 4 years, jump 3.5 years later, and we're looking at material, and he said, you do these exhibitions and you have the disco music going and the crowds are going crazy. We have to try and find something like that to compete with. It was like, disco music? The judges they're not going to like it. He said, and again, they don't have to like it, but they have to know that you get it and the audience get it, and you're delivering what they want. And even now, when kids go, finding music and judges will say, we don't have to like what you do, but your performance of it has to make perfect sense to us under the rules for us to go, well, then that's a so-and-so, and that's a tick, that's a tick, that's a tick. It's not we're not dealing in the 6.0 and 5.9 anymore. Yeah. Everything has a value, but so what is the value? Does it make sense? So I always say to myself, if I don't believe what you're performing, how am I supposed to? Well, because that means you're doing what you think you should do rather than what you want to do, and tell us who you are, and all of a sudden your score goes up and you haven't done anything differently.
For me, what I take from that very much is about, I'm obviously a fan of storytelling, and obviously on the ice you're telling a story and you're trying to say, and if you can do that then in the same with anything in life, we do it authentically and what we
Right.
believe in,
Yeah.
that's where that takes it to the next level.
Music is such a big part of my life. Always has been.
Yeah.
Mum and Dad were jazz. My eldest brother was into Metallica and Cream and Jethro Tull, and then Nick, middle brother, was the classic. So we always had all sorts of stuff playing. So I have quite an eclectic mix. But someone asked me recently in an interview, would I have enjoyed skating to lyrics when I was competing, because that's now allowed? And I said, well, it's interesting because it absolutely adds another layer to the performance, because the audience either know the song or they can hear it. But I said, that's actually something else that has to then come into the hands of the competitor. Is that only if they've got to deliver what the judges need to see and make it pretty with music, they've also got to interpret and understand where their performance sits with the lyric that's happening. And there's so many people, there's some beautiful songs that go, they haven't got a clue what they're skating to. Because English is their second language, or there's people skating. It's a very famous French song called Je suis malade, which is so beautiful, and it's sung incredibly well. And loads of people skating and smiling, and it's about a poor girl wanting to kill herself because the boyfriend's left her. But it's in French, so it sounds beautiful, and the soarings, and you go, no. Google Translate is your friend. That's a whole other conversation. But so I love to compete, and I love to perform with lyrics and find songs. But then you don't have to worry about the elements that you can perform to the lyric, and you can use the lyric. Whereas in competition, it's actually quite challenging, and for me, it's an unnecessary level of need to have when you're probably trying to decide whether or not you can do one triple jump or 3 triple jumps.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, look, I want I've talked about a few challenges and stuff like that. I wanted to just briefly talk about, like, obviously being openly gay during a challenging time. There, talk to me a little bit about that. How did you navigate that? What was it like within the sports community?
I don't know that there was much navigation, because I still am. You go somewhere, you get on stage, you watch somebody perform, you do your job, you train, you whatever you have to do, and you get off and you go home, regardless of who you are or what your sexuality is or what your politics are. You leave that at the door. However, you have to at some point come to terms with your own self-worth and how you navigate that. There were people who I knew and hung out with, and you always think you're just a few friends you would see at competitions and go. And of course, everybody always knew, but it was never. Even then, in the late 70s, early 80s, and certainly once you're on tour, it was absolutely fine. But again, it wasn't. Not that it wasn't important, but my focus, I had a singular focus on what I needed to do and how I needed to do it. I had watched John Curry go through what he went through in 4 years earlier, so I knew potentially what to expect, but I kept myself to myself. I kept sort of out of the public eye as much as I could. I don't live for it. I don't particularly care for it. It's always nice when it's there, but again, you hope then it comes on your terms and not revelations or something. So I felt very lucky, I guess, going through it and being with my family and people who knew, not necessarily talked about at that time. So I felt very lucky then, and I think now things have completely changed. It's the freedom and accessibility to be yourself, whoever, wherever, whenever, is great. But I also think there are such ways that people go, I had no idea. Well, why should you, or why would you, or I didn't know. I thought they didn't look like that when they were on stage. Well, why would they? Because they're on stage. If a spotlight goes on you, I never wanted to see an actor in the street looking the same way as I would on film or on camera. Yeah. And people's innate personalities. And there are people who have such enthusiastic lived my life, and that's wonderful. But I was never that person.
Okay. That's it. Because very much back to the thing we talked about earlier on our deathbed and the what if and etc. And you go the same. I guess there's the book by Ronnie Ware who says the regrets of the dying, living a life true to ourselves, which is the biggest regret of the dying. Right. So just I guess that to embrace every part of us as an individual.
Absolutely. And I could do that with the people that it mattered to.
Yeah.
So it was never behind my family's back. It was never not. When I finally had that conversation, and I think there's, again, I grew up of an era where the adults of that time would have felt guilt over having a gay son, gay daughter, whoever. They feel that there's something that they did wrong. And it's only when they realize, and that realization of that that you are not affected by what they think, or they are certainly now not affected by how other people see their children or their family or their brothers or sisters, whoever it might be. And that takes the onus off. And you have no control over any of that. Someone once said something to me, which is it takes a little bit of brain going. Someone else's opinion of you is none of your business. And it's you kind of go, oh, you're right. Yeah.
I love that. Because I've got twins, and one my born boy and a girl, and my son is we refer to him now as Lucy, and it was Luca and referred to Lucy. And I think for me as a parent, in 8 years of her life now, like I said, referred to as a girl, has opened someone that's very open-minded and like to think very liberal, and I've always been that way. They've taught me more about the world in these 8 years that she's been alive, and actually that we're all human beings, and that's how we need.
Right.
We're
and I think also at that age, they're not yet aware of everything that other people have gone through in order for them for you as a parent to allow them to have the life that they need. And there are so many people around who don't have family, who don't have connections, who don't feel like they fit in anywhere. Of course, we all fit everywhere, which is the most important thing.
No, it's just really interesting. I was just keen to, I guess, just to explore that with you, and I love the fact that you've described it like that. That actually, that was my life, and the people that needed to know about it knew it, and what I did
and
then,
embraced,
honestly,
and that was it.
That's all. And that's all that matters. Yeah. Amazing.
But everybody's different.
Yeah.
And everybody then has their own way of either coping, dealing, or otherwise. But the great thing is that there's probably more availability now than there ever was for help and support for whoever, whenever, wherever needed.
Yeah, amazing. Look, I know you've mentioned this earlier, and I love this statement that I never won anything because of what I did. I won it because of how
I did it.
And I found that brilliant, and but it's just obviously that focus on your performance and that resilience you've got. So I want to delve that deeper into that sort of. I'm really, one of the things on the podcast is delving into people's minds, especially someone, an Olympic champion sitting opposite me, and that mindset and the strategies you employed there to, I guess, one of the reasons you mentioned that is because of the error, I guess, in the Olympic routine, right? Changing the narrative around turning it into an opportunity.
You make a mistake, you've got a choice. You either dwell on it or move on. And I had 30 seconds had gone before, and I had 4.5 minutes left. So which do you choose? The 4.5 minutes, you just make it better and make them forget what they did, what they've already seen. And I suppose that part, I'd say that was partly in the training of being allowed just to being allowed to make mistakes. I go back to then. That's why I loved Gene Kelly so much, is because every performance looked like he was making it up as he went along, and it was spontaneous. Fred Astaire, all day, every day. But you can see how much work has gone into that, and I bet you if you did it 3 times in a row, it'd be exactly the same. It's not robotic, but it's completely contained. Whereas I went to a dance performance once and someone's shoe fell off mid-performance and they just laughed it off and they just carried on as if nothing had happened. Other people would go, oh, shock, horror, ballet company, somebody just goes, shoo. So that was my thing with Gene Kelly, and that was always my thing, the spontaneous feel, even to the point where there were certain things in a routine that I would change because you feel different today than I did yesterday. So why would it be exactly the same? And that's the thing. There are people. I started at early mornings and we were running with, and I didn't care if the cleaning lady. My job was to make the cleaning lady stop cleaning the ice rink and watch me. That was what I wanted that attention. Other people couldn't. They could do an entire routine, win however many medals, and couldn't tell you how many people were in the arena, whether it was full, half full, anybody was there or not, because they just want to keep things internal. And again, we're all different, but I am that person that likes to work to the back of the arena. I mean, it's funny. I stood on stage at the Palladium once with somebody, and I went, "Oh my God, this place is huge." I went, "No, it's not. This is actually quite intimate for my liking. I really like it. I can see the back row up there." And it's I think we are all different. But I think when I was doing the ballet, early days ballet and basics, it was that rigidity of everybody doing the same thing, and the hand was here, and it could only be there, and it couldn't be there, but it had to be there, and then finding the skating thing is that it was instantly I'm doing the same elements. I'm learning to do that jump and that jump, but how I do it is down to me. And I was taught by a nice dancer, so she was more about the aesthetics. Fantastic. I didn't know at the time, but that's the reason people Carla said is what she gave you as a learn to skate when you were first grassroots was invaluable.
And what I really took from obviously a lot of what you said, but also from that paragraph, almost that question, is that actually that things in life don't need to be perfect to be great. Because like you made that mistake, and yet you
I had 2 choices: dwell on it, or go again. And make the rest, and the rest of it was better than it's ever been, and that brought the house down, and it was great. The scores reflected the mistake in the technical score, but the artistic score was way up there, and it was and it was interesting. I mean, I had done what I wanted. I was disappointed when I got off there. I took my skates off, and I was like, oh, I didn't even watch. I skated first of the final 8 people, and it was the top 8. And then I took my skates off and I went into the arena next door where I think the American women were training. And I sat and watched. I couldn't tell you what went on. I still couldn't tell you what went on in those other 7 performances. And interestingly enough, my middle brother was sitting up in the BBC comms box with Alan Weeks. And it was all over. And Nick had seen that I had won. And then someone was saying, I think mum or somebody, parent, shouted up or cried, where's Robin? And Nick said, I have no idea. And someone said, I think I saw him. He's in the other rink. So my brother elbowed his way through the vomitory that connected 2 rinks and come on, they're waiting for you. Come on. And it wasn't until we were halfway back that my brother realized that I didn't know I had won. And I found out that I won the Olympic gold medal from my brother in the vomitory between the 2 arenas.
Wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
This is Gio. Gio runs a scarf company. Gio doesn't see the need for telecoms. Everybody uses mobiles now. But can a mobile really be a business phone? Gio is having coffee with a client, Gabby. Well, actually, Gio prefers acacia leaf tea. But what happens when someone calls? It could be a big new deal. Surely it would be rude to take the call? But many people hate leaving messages. They may just call a competitor instead. What can Gio do? The answer is simple. Turn the mobile into a business phone. With the Go Giraffe app, Geo can quickly transfer the call, or before the meeting, Geo can simply use the app to divert calls. No more missed calls, lost deals, or unhappy customers. Turn your mobile into a business phone today. Go Giraffe.
Well, look, take me to that moment, because there's that iconic picture of you, isn't there, on the podium, and you look down at the emotion and stuff.
So two things. First of all, once an Olympian, always an Olympian. If there's one thing gets my back up a little bit, especially with journalists, sports journalists who should know better when they say, former Olympic medalist so and so, Seb Coe, or whoever. Go, no. Once an Olympian, always an Olympian, which is great. And the second thing was any picture of any Olympic medalists or podiums is going to become iconic for certain people. There will always be, and it's my Olympics, there's other people have come along and done what I've done. However, the picture for me is that, yes, that's the picture of I'm holding the medal and I've got the tear going and I think I'm looking at the flag going up, and it's that moment when you just kind of go, people see relief for a lot of people, disbelief for a lot of people. I didn't know at the time, and I have the picture, but somebody from the other end of the ice rink took a picture from behind, so over my shoulder, as it were, quite high up. And that's my favorite picture, because people can, if they want to, look into that corner over my shoulder, and you can see what I could see at the time, which is the most important visual I will ever have. And that was team leader, two coaches, parents, brother, because those are the people without whom I wouldn't have been on that podium.
I love that. And it's that thing that even as an individual sport, right, is what you... And
teamwork, it's always a team. There's always a team. And the team stays with you because, I mean, he's no longer around, Les Barnsley. Without him doing what he did, the team isn't only what happens on the day where you are. The team are all the people who have done significant work, helped work, mentored, put a little something in your ear and you kind of, ooh. I always say to people, take every piece of information that anyone ever gives you, because at some point you'll go, you may have been told 10 years ago, but if it's worth it, it'll pop up when it needs to. But the team is not just the coaches or the parents. It's all the people that are behind you at that point. My oldest brother wasn't at the Olympics, and of course, newspaper, he's not there. There's trouble in the family. Now my sister-in-law was having a baby, and in fact had the baby while I was on the ice at the Olympics, which is why Robin Jr. was born. So yeah, priorities. But it is that moment for me was when I found out, and I looked and I thought, that's why I'm here.
It's amazing. Surround yourself with great people.
You surround yourself with people who will tell you what you need to hear, not what they think you want to hear.
Yeah, good advice.
Yeah, reality checks.
Yeah. Can you still go back to that moment? Like now, you're sitting here with me. Can you still go back and
yes?
That emotion
and the reason I can do that is I've never seen it. I don't want the memory, and as faded or as twisted or changed as it had been in the last 44 years now, almost February. I don't want that changing because what I look when I see it isn't how I felt, or if I think I felt, or how I feel now. It's 44 years ago, and that's gonna, that I have changed. I have become a different person from then, hopefully better, certainly different, because we all continue to learn and grow. So my memory of what happened on that night is what I live off, not a video or looking at YouTube and sitting there going, look, that's me. No. It's again, everybody will be different. Other people, will like to look back on things. And I've seen bits And of course, because of the expense of Olympic footage, you only ever see 10 seconds of this, 30 seconds of that. So I've never watched the whole thing through. I know what I did because I was there. I did it.
Sure.
But I couldn't tell you what my competitors did.
Great, mate.
Because it wasn't about them.
Yeah.
I can't make it. You can't make it about somebody else.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm always fascinated as well with talking about. And I think I'm going to know the answer to this from you just by getting a feel and a passion and stuff that you talk about. But with setting our goals as we do in business, right? We have to set goals, and same with Olympics. I've had Sally Gunner on the podcast as well. I've spoke to her, and you talk about again that journey and the process and enjoying that as much as we possibly can, because cause so many people talk about achieving that goal, and then actually it's a bit of a afterwards you go, oh, was that euphoria moment for that split second, and then everything after
now
that
what?
is
The now what moment.
Yeah, exactly that. What's your take on that? Talk to me a little bit about that for you.
See, different for me, because the now what there was no now what. It was when. Because I always knew that I wanted to join an ice show, I wanted to perform, and my sport was one of those things that had an afterlife within its context. So the idea of joining Icecapades or Holiday on Ice or somewhere, I spent my first 2.5 years touring with Holiday on Ice and learning about my craft and learning how to perform, and I suppose the first almost 4 months weren't particularly pleasant, in as much as I was loving what I was doing, but I was being announced every night, 3 times on Saturdays, twice on a Sunday, 10 times a week. Ladies and gentlemen, Holiday on Ice is proud to present Olympic figure skating champion. And you kind of go, okay, now I'm trying to be what they think I need to be 10 times a week, when I have spent the last 4 or 5 years doing 9 championships a year. Yeah. So the context and again, the people around me and the other professional performers in the show who were so helpful, and Brian Clavino, who was the performance director and the performance skater, who ended up coming and working with me on some of my shows, was really helpful in making me understand that I can only be as good as I can be on that one performance, in exactly the same way as the rest of his cast can only be as good as they can be on that performance. Ignore, as I learned, ignore the announcement. Just do what you do every day for the reason you do it. Light bulb moment. Stephanie Andros choreographing. People have, they're paying to come and see an Olympic champion, but there's no judges. So let's expand your repertoire. Let's change you slightly so that you give them, as I always say, give people exactly what they want, just not the way they expect to get it. So there were people around me, and I was very lucky, that helped me and have informed how I am now as a choreographer and a director and a mentor, because beyond the Olympic scope of what Carlo and Krista could do, they then helped me take it into a professional level. I was like, oh, okay, now I get it. But it's not instant, but I know that there are those people who have that focus and focus and focus and focus. And all of a sudden that focus has to change in a way that's drastic, because they're no longer hearing a starter gun. They're no longer working towards hearing a starter gun or the smell of the chlorine or holding a hammer or throwing a javelin. It's an interesting transition. Of course, it's only been fairly recently with UK Sport and Team GB, where people are helping athletes to transition into other things, and some of them have done complete universities, and they quite happily can walk away from this and go. But the mindset of the athlete never disappears. Yeah, sure. We find that with dancing on ice. Is if you find the athlete, they get okay, I just have to go in a corner and repeat this 50,000 times. Yep. Okay, bye. Whereas actors can't make a move without being told, because generally in a movie or a TV set, they're not allowed to. So they're constantly waiting for that validation. And there are those people who go, oh, I don't have to wait for you to tell me. I can do it again on my own. Yeah, you can. It's everybody has a different mindset and how they will take what they've had for 20 years, 30 years, however, moving forward. So I feel incredibly lucky that I found that my craft could continue in the professional world, and now it's still going as we're in discussions with Holiday on Ice about being creative and creating yet another show and choreographing for some of our younger squad skaters who are coming up and and saying this is it's thrilling to still be involved. Yeah.
And I guess, like you said, the great thing for you, we talk right from the start of your story and that moment where you loved, you found out this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
To building your career out of it, to still you can tell your passion and your enthusiasm.
It's always going to be there. It ain't going anywhere.
Like sitting opposite me.
It's not always going to be nice, though. There are those times, no matter where you are, whether you're a novice, junior, senior, Olympian, where you just think the last thing you want to do is put the boots on.
Yeah.
However, people say, I'm having a really bad practice session. Okay. Who's telling you have to be here for the next half an hour? How about you take your skates off? Go have a wander around. Go somewhere. Come back and start again. Put your skates on again. Realize why you put them on. And then come back. And you might only get 10 minutes at the rest of that session, but that would be much better 10 minutes than you trying to plod on now for half an hour with that mindset. Go. I can do that. Yeah, because the session's an hour. There's nothing in the rule book that says you have to skate for an hour. You've got an hour within to do the work. If you can do the work you're required to do in 20 minutes, that gives you 40 minutes of playtime where you can experiment and challenge yourself and try things and try, watch the others. Oh, I'll have a go at that. Oh, but that's their music. Well, how do you know if you're going to be any good at skating to music unless you try a bit of everything? Again, it's allowing that freedom of allowing of expression. That just see the parameters differently. That's I think a hindsight thing that I have now, is an understanding that, as you said earlier, it's something that was in me. I don't know that I was fully cognizant at the time that that's how I was. Yeah.
It's so amazing. Well, look, just as we're coming towards the end, and before I finish off with a final question, talk to me a little bit just about, obviously, Sports Personality of the Year 1980.
Yeah.
Talk to me.
That was redonkulous.
Very strong competition in that
you
that
think?
Year as well. So
and without being rude to any of them, I mean, I was aware of. I knew Seb, and I knew the names. I was doing my thing, and they were doing theirs, and I wouldn't have expected them to know my career trajectory any more than I would know theirs at that point in time. And obviously the Olympics, February 1980. I did some galas, exhibitions. I went back, packed things up from the States. I joined Holiday on Ice, started rehearsals in August. So I think I'd come back and done the City of Bristol presentation, which was fantastic, and then the Eamon Andrews Red Book, This Is Your Life thing. And I came back, I think I came back for the weekend from Holiday on Ice to go and have a lovely evening watching the event and being a part of it. And of course, that was back in the day when the Sports Personality of the Year was just the one award. It was great because I would probably see Jane and Chris would have been there, and Nikki and Karen. There was a bunch of people that I hadn't seen for ages. Lovely. It was a lovely evening. Knowing that summer of Olympics, it was Moscow. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Olympic medalists. Yeah. And I'm thinking, okay, I didn't know at the time, of course, hindsight tells me that Daly had already won. There were other things, but I was thinking it was in the bag for Seb Coe. It was absolutely in the bag. I don't know. I look at the picture of me holding it and thinking, and I looked so young also. Yeah. I needed a stylist as well at that point. But it was amazing. I don't remember much about it other than the fact, again, I was just not prepared. I don't really prepare speeches now. I kind of have an idea in my head of what I need to say, and that's, again, over the years. And I wouldn't have written anything then. It would have been, I always like things to be spontaneous. So, yeah, it just...
A magical moment.
A magical moment. I got the Daily Express Sportsman of the Year award as well, which sits there alongside. It's yeah.
if you could go back, talk to your 10-year-old self, what advice would you give about your whole journey and what's happened, and would you change anything? But what advice would you give it?
I certainly wouldn't change anything. Would I hope that certain things turned out slightly differently? I suppose the one thing I would say is take your time. That would be it. Take your time. The impetuous thing has not gone away necessarily. As I say, I am a very much a destination person, not the journey. And I suppose it would be there are certain moments in your life where you have to allow the journey to take the time it takes and not be in a hurry to get to your destination. That would be it.
Because that's really interesting. Because again, back to that point, this is why I find that really fascinating, actually. Because when we talk about as I said, so many people fixed on that destination and that thing, especially from an Olympic point of view.
Right.
But whereas, because of how you talk about what you achieved and how you did it over that period and the joy that you got from the whole process of everything, you do allude to that, but I almost push back on you a little bit there, because it's like you almost got that balance right with it. You've got that, I've got these goals and these targets,
right.
these destinations.
And I suppose it goes back to what you said with Sally, where, and everybody has this aspiration. Aspirational living is what everybody should have. The thing is, once you've decided what that is, come back, get that, put the ladder in place, and then have those markers that allow this to be. This you can't get from here to there. You can't get from the bottom to the top instantly, or without knowing where those ladders and ledges are, where you have to sit and hold those holding patterns for you to get comfortable with this to then move on to the next one. People just don't leave base camp and next thing they're planting the flag on the top of Everest. There has to be a plan, and you also have to be very prepared for that plan to change course. Doesn't mean to say that you're not ultimately going to get where you're going, and I suppose that's the job. I was always trying to do it the most direct way. But every now and again, veer, allow yourself to go off, because it's a learning process. That's part of that learning process. Sure. And you can suddenly go, okay, I didn't really need to do that. However, look what I got out of it. Eve could just be a nice lunch. It doesn't matter. Or somewhere. I found somewhere new to eat on the journey home from Nottingham. But it's allowing those moments to happen and not be quite so blinkered.
Amazing. Look, we're going to round up our final question. The thing I ask everyone on here, and like I said, the title of the tagline of the podcast, helping the world to see success differently. But I'm always ask everyone. Look at your incredible achievements and all you've done over your amazing life. Where you've been, where you are now, where you're going. How do you define success?
Success is the ability to know that you're not done yet. And that's just pulled that one right out of my backside. I think it's the idea that you can be happy with what you've got, and we're both sitting here. But tomorrow, that success might elevate somewhere else and take you on another. You never be satisfied because you're never done. That's the thing.
I love that. What a brilliant way to finish. Robin, I can't thank you enough for your time.
My pleasure. Thank you. It's been.
I could chat to you forever. Like just your enthusiasm and passion still for everything. You talk about, you can see it with the ice skating and everything. And I've been fortunate enough to be on the ice with you. And when we done the thing, we had a great time. And but you're. And it's, I think everything that we do in life, if we can find that magical ingredient.
Everybody has that nugget in them. They just got to figure out how to find it, and where the trigger is that allows them to use it.
Amazing. What a great way to finish.
Thank you
so much for your time.
Pleasure.
It's been amazing. Amazing. And that, as they say, is a wrap.